right, say hey, hello, friends and fans of Bob's Barn Workshop. We're here in the barn again today, and we've been working on this multiple sequence project of building the cabinets for the lake property, kitchen cabinets. We've done the carcasses, we've done the face frames, we've done the decorative panels for the areas of the cabinets that don't have doors on them, which is just vertical tongue and groove 3-inch boards. So we're back in the shop today, and we're going to start on the doors. So I have my 30 pieces of 1x4x8 knotty pine. I just got my chop saw set up. Now I'm going to do a little different technique on these doors than I did on the decorative paneling. I want the door joints and boards to be very straight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut all the pieces a couple of inches longer than I need. And then I'm going to run them through the joiner and straighten any curve or bumps on these edges. It'll narrow the boards just a hair, but not much. And then I'll run them all through the router and put the tongues and grooves in it. And then we'll glue them up. Some of the boards, of course, will not need the tongue or the groove on every edge because they're going to be the edge of the door. And I'm going to kind of have to keep track of that in my mind. And so, first of all, we're going to set this up and we're going to start cutting the upper cabinet door pieces. I got to count how many that is. I think I'm going to cut them like 31 inches. Alright, so I'm going to cut a crap load 31 inches. So because these pieces are going to be over length cut, I don't have to be real precise on my lengths here, but I do want to put a stop block on here. So for a stop block, you just grab yourself a block of wood, a clamp. The boards are 96 inches, so if I cut them 31, that'll give me a lot of leeway. So I'm not measuring right to the blade exactly either, but I got lots of leeway, and I'm going to chop them off anyway. So I just randomly stuck my stop block here. Not randomly, I measured out 31 inches, but plus a little bit. And we'll just tighten that stop block down. Now did you see where I put that? Yeah. And I got my dust collector hooked up, bada bing, bada boom. Which is a remote control job. Now I'm going to want to cut each end of these nice and square. I don't need to cut them square because I'm cutting them off. I'm just going to check for splits. I want to make sure I don't have any running splits in here, which I don't. So let's put that against the block. Turn on the dust collector. This dust go flying. There's the one. Two. I don't really need to cut the end of this off, but I will. Alright. I gotta do this a whole bunch more time. I'm trying to get efficient here. Make less cuts so I get stacked up. That's the way to do some production there. All these edges will be squared. Calculate the rest. Alright, so we've been doing a lot of chop sawing. Here's 10 pieces for the cabinet that goes over the stove with the dryer, the exhaust fan. That's like 2 foot high or so, and so the door, those are about 2 foot pieces. There's a whole bunch of 30-inch pieces to do the upper cabinets and the bifold cabinet door. There's 2 30s and the bifold cabinet door on the top. these are 32-inch for all the lower cabinet doors, like the sink front and the island and the sliding door that I've been working on that I'm so hepped up about. Here's the breakfast bar, snack bar doors. There's 15 pieces of that, no 20. And then there's the little narrow cabinet above the refrigerator that has all those doors. So I think I got everything covered. So now I got to set up my joiner. I can take my chop saw down. I have a rig for my joiner where I put a cinder block and a piece of wood, and it gives me a little in-feed table, and I have a dust collector. I'll show you that when I get it set up. It hooks up to the same hose as the dust collector on the chop saw hood. It's just a little box I built to fit over the end of the joiner. I just have a very small joiner, but it works really well for small pieces. When they get real long and gangly, they bounce around. I need something with a longer table for that. But anyway, we're going to get to that, and then we're going to start running the router table. So I just had to show you this guy. I'm using this cinder block and piece of plywood here for my in-feed table to keep the board straight. Now I only need to come out this far, so that'll be perfect. And I just want to show you how perfect and flat that is. That's my straight edge. I can't see any light and I can't see any gaps. That's going to be straight enough. Alright, so we'll get to jointing these. Now the joiner is a simple little machine. It just has a rotating blade. This table is a fraction of an inch lower than this table. So you bring this in straight, it starts cutting a little off, and where you cut it off starts resting on this part of the table. So then you put your force on here, keep this part of the board flat, and then it'll straighten out with, and you'll get a very, very, very straight edge, and that's all I'm going for. Now I've only got it set to take off like a 32nd of an inch. And we'll make a run and straight edge them and make sure that they're coming out good. Alright, well, I'll get you set up for that. And just like that, down to the last couple pieces. I'm going to zoom into the cutter area. Now, the tendency is you want to put downward force past the blade when you come through like this. And all I can say is, especially if you're doing hardwood, do not drag your thumb on that corner of the jointed edge, you know, once you flip the board, because that will actually cut you. It'll make a cut. So if you're going to do that, press down with the tip of the thumb, not on the edge, and your fingertips like that, kind of like a crab claw, so you don't run on that edge, or slide your hand with it as you go and lift it, and don't press on it. And if you run it through and you listen to the blade and the blade skips or you don't hear it hit, that means you got to run it again because there was a hollow or a high spot and it won't be straight, so you got to run it so you can hear that blade taking wood the whole length of the piece of board that you got. And that's about it. We've got all 101 pieces jointed now. And I guess I could start on routing, but what I want to do is I want to sort out. Some of the boards don't need a tongue on the edge. They just need the groove, or vice versa, for the edge of the door, and that's where I want to be able to cut it to the narrower width. So I don't want to put a groove or a tongue on some of these boards. So I'm going to have to sort out the boards from the stack, decide which door is going to be which, and how I'm going to manipulate that. Because I said two edges of the door, one doesn't have a groove, one doesn't have a tongue. So we're gonna have to figure out what boards we're gonna use for that while we run them through the router bit. Plus, that'll gain us an extra 3/8 of an inch if we have a door that has just a sliver of wood. You need more to make it fit the hole correctly, and I think I got a couple I have to do that with. Well, all right, fans, the wife came out and helped me decide which were good fronts for the boards and edges and all that stuff. So we've got each door sorted out into its own pile. Which part of it you don't want a tongue on. It says no tongue on that one, and on the other one I guess it probably says no groove, kind of a thing. So Peninsula uppers, there's just some of the uppers. There's the base cabinets for the bar, the 3 doors over the refrigerator, the small cabinet up there, over the stove. This is the bifold door by the refrigerator. These are the lower slider, the sink base. All right, well, I guess we got everything. I don't know why that stopped or if I missed it, but I'm making the grooves on the first door. I did a test cut, turned out great. And so now I have to run a bunch more through here. So I'm going to leave you run for just a minute. Fast forward. Obviously I'm going to skip it, and we'll be back when I'm done. Well, here we are. We got the grooves cut in all the boards. I only screwed up twice and had to make new boards because I put grooves when grooves weren't supposed to be in there. Crap happens, as they say. But every one of these piles is a door. So let's tell you how many doors. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I count 20. 20 doors to make. I did buy a nice wide board today to make the drawer fronts out of. And I bought a couple other 1x4s because I knew I would find boards that I wasn't happy with. So these are scraps for now. We are going to set up and do all the tongues. Now, I don't know if you want to see the setup, but what I got is I take the groove setup jig that I cut before. I probably should cut a new one. And I guess this is probably the one I just ran. So that references me to what has been done right now. Right? I'll have to move that. So I put my other bit in there and basically just line the tongue up with the groove there and call that good. Alright, let's do that. Just an explanation of how I'm setting this bit up. This is a board that I cut the last time and I call it setup. And this is the new bit in the router. So all I've got to do, all you got to do is, as the wife always says, I need to, let's see, This thing is so crunchy though. I wish I had a better adjustment. See, now that seems just perfect. Slides right in there. Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll put it back in. I tighten the crap out of this clamp with a pair of pliers like that. I do not want it to move. So what we'll do is, before we get any farther, we will cut a piece, a scrap piece, and compare that to the setup jig. Alright, sorry I was zoomed in. So now it's the tongue I just cut. We will compare it to one of the grooves in some of the wood we just cut earlier, because those are the mates we need to mate up to.
Alright.
So now I need to run them all. So we'll run one. Now see, I have to go a lot slower with that bit because this takes a whole lot more. This just made a little groove. This takes both sides of this off 3/8 of an inch deep and chamfers it. So this takes a whole lot more wood off. Now let's see how this mates up to these other boards. Oh yeah, that's perfect. Can't get any better than that. So, I'll try and go deaf before this is over, but we'll fast forward through. Last 3 pieces to get the tongue on it. Guys, to reiterate, always use your fingerboards, hold your work in place. You don't have to put a lot of force on it yourself. These will keep it against the bit, keep it down flat. Now this cut's referencing from the face down, so even if the variance of the thickness of this board changed, the groove and the chamfer and the front face of these would all line up flush. So that's a good thing. Use your push sticks if you need to. My wrists got a little sore. And if you notice on a couple of the boards, the edges were all beat up. But those were the edges that I decided to use for the tongue. And see, the tongue cuts back on the bottom 3/8 of an inch. And on the top, a little over half, like almost close to 5/8. So knots and stuff in the edges don't necessarily have to cause you any problems. So I've been milling all day here. I've got all the grooves and all the tongues done. I'm going to go in and take a short break. And now we got to start gluing these suckers up. Alright guys.